Hi guys, the Benidorm Enthusiast here, bringing you this video today from a very hot and very busy Benidorm. For today's video, I'm hoping to clear up some of the things that have been hitting the headlines lately, causing a bit of confusion and even panic amongst some of you who have plans to visit or are looking to book at the moment. There's two main points of discussion on the agenda: a tourist tax for this region and entry requirements involving minimum spends and extra paperwork. First of all though, let's have a quick chat about the weather. It's hot and very humid at the moment. 31 degrees today, shade temperature, which is a few degrees cooler than it has been for most of this last week, thankfully. Humidity has also started to drop. It's been pretty unbearable at some points this last week, with shade temps in the mid-30s, and with the thermal effect of the humidity, it has felt closer to 40 degrees most days. The last couple of days though, it's been a bit cloudy, which has been locking the heat in and making it even more stuffy, with overnight temperatures barely dropping under 30. This sort of weather is not unusual for August here, but it does seem to have arrived early this year. There have been some rain and storms up the coast and inland, which has started to clear the air, and the sun's back out today, so hopefully we will be starting August with a much fresher and drier heat. Okay, so on to the news. First point I want to talk about is a tourist tax for the Valencia region. Now, I did a video about this quite a while ago, and not much has changed for Benidorm since then. Benidorm is still strongly against a tourist tax, and it's very unlikely to be implemented here. But despite almost everybody involved in the tourist industry in Benidorm voicing their strong opposition to a tourist tax being brought in the Valencia region, and there being months and months of arguments about it, a recent vote within the Valencia government finished with 51 in favour and 45 against. This means that Parliament has approved the bill, which will allow the implementation of a tourist tax. Two big points to make here. This tourist tax won't start until the year 2024, and it will be a voluntary tax, which means it's up to each individual district, Benidorm being one, as to whether they charge it or not. And as just mentioned, Benidorm has from day one said they do not plan on enforcing this tax. The tourist organisations, hotel associations, the tourism board, the council, and even the mayor himself have all said this is not the right time to be even considering a tourist tax when we're in a vital recovery period after the pandemic, and should be doing everything possible to attract tourists back here, not charging them for the pleasure. Further across our province, there's even been a study done at Alicante University to investigate the effects of such a tourist tax. This concluded that it would not be beneficial for tourism in this area, and these findings have been presented to the Valencia government. It's worth noting that this tax is already in place in many parts of Spain. It's not a new tax as such, but it will be new to this region. If you've recently visited Barcelona or Mallorca, for example, you will have paid this tax. Being combined in with your accommodation costs, you probably will not even noticed that you were paying it. So what's the tourist tax for? Well, some of the proposals by the parties who support it have included improving tourist facilities and infrastructure, as well as sustaining the upkeep of the resorts and the cities. Street cleaning, emptying bins, keeping the beaches as beautifully clean as they are. All these things cost money, of course, and at the moment it's done at no cost to the tourist. The argument being, of course, by the opposition is that most towns and cities, Benidorm being a massive one, would be nothing like without tourism. And many other sectors rely completely on tourism. Therefore, we should not be charging tourists to visit when it's obviously beneficial for everybody that they do. How much will the proposed tax be? for the areas that do decide to charge it. The tax will range from 50 cents per night to €2 per night, depending on the type and the standard of accommodation. So in summary, from 2024, there may be some districts in the Valencia region that do decide to charge a tourist tax. The recent vote means that they can if they choose to. I personally think it's very unlikely to be charged to those visiting Benidorm. But in 2 years, a lot can change, as we've seen over the last 2 years. If we do get any inkling that the consensus is changing, we will of course let you know. And please let us know what you think about the implementation of a tourist tax. Good idea or bad? We'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. Next thing I want to talk about today, and I have to say this has given me quite the headache over the last week or so, after it was splashed all over the UK tabloid front pages. I've received literally hundreds of emails, messages and posts on our Facebook group about this, so I hope I can clear this up for you guys today. What did the headlines say? Typical scaremongering from the press, really. New restrictions for Brits entering Spain. Brits must now prove minimum spending money. Those were a couple of the most shock-inducing headlines over the last week or so. So what's the real story behind these headlines? Well, first of all, this is absolutely nothing new. It's not something that Spain has all of a sudden decided to impose on UK visitors. The regulations I'm about to discuss have been in place for years, decades even, for third country nationals when entering Spain. The only thing that's changed in recent years is that the UK chose to leave the EU, became a third country and therefore is now included in the regulations for entry to Spain for third countries, along with many other countries like the USA and Australia, for example. So why have the media recently concentrated on this topic for stories then? Well, because it's summer and they know hundreds of thousands of Brits will be visiting Spain soon. Therefore, any story involving holidays and travel to Spain is pretty much guaranteed to get people buying the papers, showing their friends, clicking on the internet articles. It's just the way the mainstream media works. If there's no story, they'll make one fit to sell the papers. What are the regulations then which have hit the headlines and are causing so much worry? Firstly, proving the reasons and conditions of the planned stay. And secondly, proving sufficient financial means for the proposed stay. Now, the papers have really blown this out of all proportion, implying tourists must prove where they are staying and when they are returning at border control, and they must prove that they have at least €100 per day to spend on their holiday before they will even be allowed to enter Spain. In reality, this is just not the case. The part to take most notice of from the Spanish government website is where it says, at the request of the competent authorities. These regulations are in place, but they're a safeguard the authorities can use if they suspect people may be entering Spain with the intention of staying illegally, overstaying without a visa, obtaining work illegally and things like that. If they do suspect this, then yes, they have the right to request such documents from visitors. However, I have never known these requirements be applied to the average tourist. UK visitors have been covered by this since leaving the EU, as mentioned before. So how many of you guys have been over to Spain since Brexit and have been stopped and forced to provide these documents? Because I haven't met a single person who has. And I have met and spoke to literally thousands of tourists from the UK over the last year or so. I also don't think they ever will be enforced on the average tourist. That's not what these regulations are for. They're a tool that can be used to combat illegal immigration, not a restriction to control tourists with. Can you imagine the chaos it would cause at the airports? It's simply not practical, it's not logical, it's not needed, and most importantly, to put your guys' minds at rest, these checks are just not happening for general tourism. So if you're due to come over soon for a holiday, or you're thinking of booking soon, don't let the media hype put you off. These regulations are nothing to worry about for the average tourist. If you have no accommodation booked or nowhere to stay, you've got no return ticket and very little cash, then yes, questions may be asked. But is that how the average tourist travels? No, it's not. So don't panic about these regulations. Yes, they are in place for the UK, but no, they are not enforced for regular tourists, and I doubt very much they ever will be. Once again, if things do change and we start hearing about normal tourists being asked to provide this extra information and evidence upon entry to Spain, then of course we will keep you informed. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, follow our updates and click on the bell so you get notified whenever we release a new video. I hope this video has cleared up some things for you and put your mind at ease. If you're heading over here soon, if you have any queries about anything else you've seen in the news regarding travel to Spain, things happening in Benidorm, don't hesitate to ask us in the comments. We will do our best to get you the answers you're looking for. Thanks for watching. Check out the Benidorm Enthusiast on our other social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. Stay positive and stay safe.